welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Innovate discussion panel. I've got Julian Philips from Whitlock and Avixa with me here today, and we are going to be talking about the intersection of technology and space. So, Julian, we've reached this spot where technology has to be heard but not seen. It's almost like everyone wants the function that technology provides, but no one really wants to see it. How do AV professionals balance this act of making sure that their products have the space they need to work, but at the same time adhering to the wishes of a client where they want the tech to be invisible?
Well, I've heard the sentiment, which is we want the technology to melt away and not be a hindrance to people being able to work naturally. I hear that. I don't hear the piece that says we don't want to see technology. In fact, at the same time, where we're actually seeing the demand for us to actually simplify the experience that people have when they're meeting in conference rooms, and that's a trend that we're all seeing, at exactly the same time, the same clients are saying we want to be able to have direct view LED displays in our lobby areas, so when people come into our space, we see these amazing experiences. So I think they want to be able to know that technology no longer is that barrier where people walk into a space and they become intimidated by all of this very complex way of doing a video meeting or sharing a presentation. They want it simple, and to that end, they do want the technology to melt away into the background. But the demand that we're seeing for people wanting to visualize what they actually do and see more of what we can actually do is growing exponentially. So if you're an integrator in the room and you're worried that your margins, your percentage margins, we can talk about margins another time about what that means, but your percentage margins of how you make money providing conference room spaces might be shrinking a little bit by the transaction. The opportunity for that same customer to actually provide very complex visual solutions is growing to actually help create a balance in that particular respect. What we're really seeing, however, is actually a trend in the market where customers are saying, look, collaboration is not a piece of technology. Collaboration is a fundamental human endeavor, and we need our people to be much better collaborators in the enterprise, and it's not just around the technology. It's about the space that they actually are provided, and it's how that space is configured. It's creating spaces that are very functional to what people are trying to do, and the technology has to actually evolve to be able to create and enhance that experience in that particular kind of space. So a good example is if you see a lot of interactive technology. Microsoft Surface Hub is a good example of a piece of technology that was designed specifically for people to actually walk up and actually draw and co-create and collaborate. And yet we've seen in the first phase people putting them into conference rooms with a dirty great piece of wood in the middle of a conference room with tables around there, which creates a barrier to collaboration. People are not going to get out of their chair and walk up in front of an interactive whiteboard when they've got that kind of configuration of room. So in the same way that technology is changing and evolving, the actual space design itself is changing as well. And what we have to do as technology providers is we have to come together with the people that design the space and the furniture and everything else that goes with that, and actually design technology that enables people to collaborate in natural ways, in lots of different kinds of ways. And I would actually argue that creates more opportunity for us than it creates less.
And the key question from there would be, we need to collaborate with interior designers, we need to collaborate with architects, we need to move across our silos and talk to everyone.
Yep.
How do we do that?
Silos is a good word. I'm talking about busting silos after this particular talk, actually. Look, the reality is, I don't know if the audience are manufacturers or end-user customers or integrators, but whatever your background, wherever you've come from, the reality is we're coming into a new space right now. And that space is that we have to learn that providing solutions to customers is really focusing on helping a customer achieve a particular goal. It is not about us trying to maximize our profits on selling them as much technology as we possibly can. If that is the business we think we're in, and that we believe that we're going to sustain and grow our businesses just by selling kit at a margin, we're probably already on the slow death spiral. So what we have to do is actually shift our attention to focusing on really what it is our customers are trying to do, become their trusted advisor, enable them to actually understand that you can bring value that others who just want to sell them boxes and all the rest of it cannot do. And you're going to have to collaborate with other people who are part of that particular solution set and bring the total solution to them. Now, if you are an integrator, that probably means you're not going to be able to do everything yourself. You can't expect that I can be a guy that is doing technology and all the complexities of technology, as well as being an interior space designer, as well as providing the furniture and all the rest of it. You're going to have to partner. And partnership is something that the AV industry as a whole has not been very good at. I mean, there are wonderful exhibitions and shows all around the world of vendor integrator and consultant integrator relationships about how do we transact between ourselves, but not necessarily how do we actually come together and create a joint value proposition where we're actually bringing the very best of what our two companies or three companies do and take that as a solution to the customer. And I think this is the new era that we're in right now, is understanding the role of partnerships and how we can actually create these dependent partnerships where we're all benefiting by coming together, bringing our expertise, but no one is trying to necessarily dominate that particular conversation. Because you can't have a partnership where it's like, you know, everything that is on my terms and, you know, you're just going to be my subcontractor. That does not work. So I think there's a new learning that we all need to have in this industry is how do we partner? What is the basis of that partnership and how we actually create unique value through that?
Let's flip over to the user side for a second and talk about how users are interacting with technology in spaces. We saw what touch did to the industry and how in certain ways we had to play catch up to that consumer trend. And we're now seeing voice become the mode of input and the mode of communication with technology on the consumer side. What do you think that's going to do to the AV industry? What impact is it going to have?
As long as I've been involved in technology, both in IT and telecoms and now in AV, the consumerization of technology has played a very powerful role in enabling whole new solutions that actually rapidly can be adopted across the enterprise. It used to be, in the very early days of IT, as far back as I remember anyway, that it used to be that the B2B community created the technology, set the standards, and then it would filter down into the consumer world. We've seen a flip, almost to the point where it's consumer technology that is actually creating that paradigm, and that's now coming into the business market. So touch, as you mentioned, with iPads and iPhones and everything, that whole expectation that if I see a display, and if you ever watch a small child walk up to any kind of display or what have you, first thing they do is they reach out and touch. We've conditioned people to that whole new dimension of that. I'm a bit of a gadget freak, so as soon as the Alexa advert first came out, and it wasn't even a product, it was a preview, I was like, I have to have that. Because literally, any new product comes out, I have to have that. But I didn't actually fully appreciate at that time what it would actually do as far as how it's now taken off in the last 3 or 4 years. I now have 20 Alexas around my house. Literally, you can go into any room or any space in my house, and you can say, switch on the lights, show me the security cameras, and that's what I've been able to do in my own home, and I haven't brought any expertise or any residential AV. If you're in residential, I'm sorry, but you know, I basically bought components off the web, I configured it myself using standard stuff and IFTTT and linked the whole thing together, and it works. So what that has done, that whole sort of opening up the range of possibilities of what you can do with consumer technology, we're now seeing large enterprises actually saying, I want some of that. I want to be able to rapidly deploy those kind of technologies that I can provide to my user base, because guess what? We're in a war for talent, and we need to attract, I hate to use the word millennials because millennials are getting old now. It's actually the new generations that are actually coming in beyond millennials, but we have to be able to attract people and provide them technologies, environments on how they used to work at home, because the space between work and home is now completely blurred. No one of us goes to work now and doesn't do stuff that we should be doing at home. We could be surfing Facebook, we could do whatever it is we're actually doing. Likewise, when we go home, we're still working, we're doing emails, we're still communicating. So you can't look at work and home as two separate things anymore, in the same way with technology. So you have to actually understand that some technology that's in the home is going to be in the workspace, and obviously some workspace technology is in the home. So we have to figure that out. So yes, are we seeing demand for touch? Yes, we are. But I think a lot of people don't understand touch, as I alluded to earlier, and they're not designing spaces that actually create the environments where people can actually use touch effectively, but I think that's changing. Are people looking for voice? Yes, they are. Do they really understand exactly what that application is and how to actually deploy it? Probably not. And there probably might be better ways of achieving that end goal without using voice, but there's no doubt about it. Voice, for me, is not the important thing. The voice is just the human interface. The important thing is AI that actually sits behind the voice engine, and that's the thing that people are actually looking for. They're looking for that AI engine that might be an interface through voice, but they're looking for the automation, and they're looking for the smarts, and they're looking for all of that stuff that AI and automation can actually provide, and then embed that into the enterprise. However, here's the caveat. In every conversation we have with a large enterprise customer who says, the CEO has basically said he wants touch everywhere, he wants voice everywhere, he wants our enterprise to be like it is at his home, where he probably did employ a very expensive residential AV consultant to do it all for him. Trouble is, the IT security police come in and actually say, whoa, hang on a sec, hang on. There are some real challenges in trying to implement a lot of that kind of stuff right now with everything that's going on in security. So when we start looking at what the role of an integrator is, or the role of a technology vendor, we have to be open to and understand how we can apply consumer technology. But we also have to do that in the context and the framework of an enterprise class strategy. And so no longer is acceptable to say, you can't have that, Mr. CEO, because it's, we don't allow it on the network. That's not an answer. You have to find the answer, but then you have to find the solutions that are going to secure it and make sure that it's actually going to be supportable across there. So again, when you ask the question, what is the role, if you are an integrator, what is the role that you have to play in that? You have to start learning about security. You have to start learning about how you do API integration within services that might actually bring that together. These are all new revenue streams and opportunities that you didn't have before, when all we were doing is really just selling boxes and making margins on boxes and trying to fit them together to make them work. And so this is a new era for integration, and we have to start learning how we actually adapt to that. We also, and that comes back to the partnership piece, you probably don't know how to do all of that yourself, so you're going to have to find some partners and how to do that. But yeah, let's welcome consumer technology. Let's not try and stop it, because if you don't provide it and you don't figure out how to integrate it, somebody else will, and you will get off the seat of the table.
For smart buildings, where are the smarts going to come from? Do you think we can provide them, or are we beholden to the IBMs and the Accentures and the Googles to develop an overarching platform that we then feed into?
So on my time on the Avixa board, I'm coming to the end of 7 years on the board, and during that time, a lot of things have actually happened, I think, in the AV industry, and certainly as Avixa has evolved quite significantly. One of the pieces of work that we did about 4 or 5 years ago is try to understand what the value of AV was for everybody that's associated with the AV industry, predominantly because a lot of people were saying that we're being pushed out of the way because the IT guys are coming in and they're going to swallow us up, and we're going to become a very irrelevant part of a much bigger play. And that kind of paranoia has been around for quite some time. I have to tell you, having been through that particular process and understood how we can define what the value of AV is, I think actually it's increased our opportunity, it has not diminished it, and I do not think that the IT guys are going to displace it. Here is the reason why. When we did the market research and we hired a company to actually look at what the experience of AV was, and this isn't really groundbreaking stuff, but what they came back with, and a methodology to go on top of this, is that creating exceptional experiences, whether it's in a conference room, whether it's in an auditorium, whether it's in a museum or a school, is all about bringing space and environment. It's about taking content and people, and it's about technology, and it's how you bring all of those three things together in that perfect union. That is the role of AV. And if you want to ask the question what an AV integrator should be doing, it's actually understanding that if you're just a pure play IT guy, you're probably always going to be in the technology bubble. If you're an architect and you're somebody that's just doing space, you're always just going to be in the space bubble. If you're in a content creation business and you're doing lots of multimedia content creation and what have you, you're probably always going to be in that bubble too. If you want to create experiences that people are prepared to pay for and provide value for, An integrator has to then bring all of those three things together and actually create solutions out of that thing. I don't see IBM, I don't see Accenture, I don't see Dimension Data, I do not see all of those folks that have very defined business models of how they grow and develop their businesses in the IT world, wanting to, let alone being able to, wanting to take the challenge of bringing construction, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, all those different elements that all of us in the AV industry have been having to deal with for years and years and years, and then figure out how you integrate all the technology and all the content and all the other stuff and AI and all the other stuff that's coming together. So the new horizon for us is actually understanding that we are the bridge, we're the connector for bringing all of those three things together and creating these unique, compelling solutions for customers. And that's where our future revenues and opportunity is going to come from. I quite frankly don't give a damn about declining margins on selling boxes. Why? Because if your whole business is predicated on the basis that your only value is making a margin on the difference between what the cost of a box is and what you can end up selling it to a customer for, you don't have a business. So I don't want to be dependent on that particular model. Of course, I want to make margins and I want to be able to ensure that I can do that. But ultimately, the question of margins isn't about margins. The question of margins is, it's actually about profitability. If you're running a business, what you care about is how you make profit, not how necessarily you secure margins on individual transactions. And so if you start thinking differently about profit and how you're going to create long-term recurring revenue and profits with your customers, you will handle and deal with the different kind of margin issues. And so there are many, many opportunities to create value and profit out of bringing solutions together for customers, despite the fact that there might be declining margins on certain categories of products. But as I mentioned right at the very beginning, for every time I see a decline in selling a box that goes into a conference room and we move from a $30,000 conference room to a $10,000 conference room, which we've all seen that particular trend. And by the way, I welcome that because that means that 10 times as many conference rooms are going to get built out around the world. I get $1 million opportunity for a direct view LED wall that's got huge amounts of content and everything with the exact same customer, where I've probably made 5 times the amount of profit I've been doing by meeting rooms. The key question is can you do both, and can you actually hold that customer relationship and actually show your value and how you can build that out? So I am not pessimistic at all. I don't think any of us should actually be pessimistic. The data that comes out of AVIXA that shows the growth of the opportunity in the AV industry worldwide is staggering. I mean, by 2024, this will be a $325 billion business around the world. I did a little bit of research and actually found out that that is bigger than the worldwide market for bread. The AV industry is bigger than the worldwide market for bread. And if you think of that fundamental thing that people actually live off around the world, we're bigger than the worldwide market for bread. So do not be pessimistic. The growth is significant. The opportunities are significant. We just have to think differently.
And I think the best place to end this conversation, seeing that you mentioned bread, would be to go back home and compare the spaces that we have there with work. Now, I agree with you 100% that this work and home spaces are kind of blurring into one homogeneous thing. But houses are still primarily arranged according to activities. I have a kitchen, I have a lounge, I have a sleeping room, and then I go into work and it's completely different. I want to get you to look into your crystal ball and tell me what's going to happen to the workplace of the future. Are we going to see a bigger trend towards AWB, or is it going to be something that none of us expect?
Well, I've had a wonderful opportunity in the last couple of years to have a whole new mindset around that opportunity and to answer that question. So I mentioned earlier partnerships are really important, and one of the things that we did as Whitlock 18 months ago is actually formed a partnership with Herman Miller, the furniture designer and what have you. Very simply, you could probably look at Herman Miller as a manufacturer of great chairs and furniture and very iconic things like the Aeron chair. Actually, what they are is a fabulous market research company that are brilliant at design. And it just so happens that products roll out as a direct result of that. So what I've learned through that exercise is that what Herman Miller have been doing over a long period of time is tracking the trends that actually happen in workplace and how they actually create a totally different design concept to meet that. Now, activity-based working is a buzzword that's been around a while, but when you actually see how they look and actually back that up with research about what people are actually doing in the workspace and how they need to create different kinds of workspaces that enable that kind of work style, you end up with a whole range of different work styles that actually suit that kind of work, which is fundamentally different from the way that we've designed meeting spaces and collaboration spaces historically. So what I see out of that, if I look my crystal ball of what's going to happen in the next few years, I think pretty much every single enterprise that has designed workspace in this very regimented, efficiency-driven, productivity-driven, let's get as many people into as a small amount of workspace as possible, let's have people sat at their desk processing, working away. That's not the world that we're going to be in 10 years' time. I mean, the World Economic Forum predicts that by 2030, 50% of the Fortune 500 organizations are not going to be in the Fortune 500. You know, that's only 10 years away, guys. 50% of the jobs that currently exist today will have gone. They will be replaced with other kinds of jobs, but this is a fundamental shift in the way that businesses think about themselves and what their value is in the world, and also the role of people and what we do. So the workspace is going to have to actually adapt and change to enable organizations to shift into lots of different kinds of business models, more agile workspaces. And that means for all of us involved in this industry, we have 10 years ahead of us of huge potential to basically refresh and reframe the way that the workplace is actually designed and actually delivered. So will there be lots of AI? Yes. Will there be lots of needs to capture data and report about what's actually going on so that we can optimize and shift workspace? Absolutely. Will there be lots of different kinds of workspaces that require technology to be hidden away? Back to your really thing and how we do that? Absolutely. Will there be touch? Yes. Will there be voice? Yes. Will there be lots of other stuff we couldn't even imagine of right now? Absolutely. So I think very optimistically that in the next 10 years, this could be the golden era of the AV industry. And I think as long as we make ourselves relevant, as long as we get in the heart of creating solutions that are about bringing people together and enabling people to create rather than necessarily process, which has been the paradigm that we've worked in the last 20, 30 years, then I think we have this massive opportunity. So I think lots of new technology, lots of great stuff happening. This industry will grow massively, but we have to change massively too. And so my message to everyone involved in the AV industry, look forward to some fantastic, wonderful times ahead. Look forward to the fact that you're actually going to have to change your businesses and adapt and grow, but you will get rewarded if you do. If you put your head in the sand and you don't want to know, or you think this is all fantasy, then good luck to you.
Julian, thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you.